Most people want to manage their emotions. Very few know how to name them, and the ability to name what you feel precisely, quietly, without exaggeration, is what emotional literacy actually is. Not positivity, not control, precision. And reading, followed by writing, is one of the most understated ways to build it. Emotional literacy is the difference between saying I'm stressed and saying I feel overlooked. I feel uncertain, I feel ashamed, I feel relieved but also slightly afraid. That level of distinction changes how you respond to your own life. Language organizes feeling. Without language, emotion feels chaotic. With language, it becomes navigable. When you read attentively, you borrow emotional vocabulary from someone else's interior world. Consider how Jhumpa Lahiri writes about quiet displacement, not dramatic exile, but subtle cultural dissonance, or how Ishiguro captures restrained regret, the kind that lingers beneath politeness, or how Annie Ernaux dissects memory with almost surgical neutrality. These writers don't tell you what to feel, they demonstrate how feelings can be articulated. And in witnessing that articulation, you begin to recognize textures inside yourself you might have flattened into fine or bad. Then comes the blank page. After reading, you write. Not about the author's technique, about your reaction. You might write, I didn't realize I relate to quiet resentment. Or, the scene made me uncomfortable, but I don't know why. Or, I noticed envy and that surprised me. That sentence, that surprised me, is emotional literacy forming in real time. There is no need to optimize this, no need to turn it into a productivity system. Growth in this context is simply increased granularity. Psychologists sometimes speak about emotional granularity, the ability to distinguish between similar emotional states rather than collapsing them into one. Reading slows you down enough to perceive nuance. Writing anchors that nuance. That's the work. Quiet, reflective, effective. When you practice naming emotions accurately on the page, something shifts outside the page. Instead of reacting abruptly, you pause. Instead of withdrawing completely, you articulate partially. Instead of saying, I'm just tired, you might say, I think I'm disappointed. That difference alters conversations, it alters boundaries, it alters self trust. Not because you've fixed yourself, but because you understand yourself with more clarity. Imagine you read a passage about a character who feels invisible in a room full of people. You write, I don't think I feel invisible. I think I feel unacknowledged. The distinction is subtle, but invisibility feels existential. Unacknowledged feels relational. Different emotional realities require different responses, and one page full of words can reveal that. This practice does not demand intensity. It doesn't require you to excavate trauma daily. It simply asks, what did I feel? Can I name it more precisely? Over time, your emotional vocabulary expands, and when vocabulary expands, impulsivity often shrinks because clarity reduces reactivity. Reading gives you language for states you didn't know how to describe. Writing gives you ownership of those states. Together, they create fluency. No emotional drama, no emotional suppression. Fluency. And fluency allows you to move through your inner life with steadiness rather than confusion. You don't need louder affirmations, you need more accurate words. Read slowly, write slowly, one page. Name what is actually there. That's how depth grows, quietly and without spectacle.